Welcome to the Colorado Real Estate Leaders Podcast, brought to you by Trailstone Insurance Group, bringing you interviews with Colorado's best real estate and mortgage professionals, empowering you to understand the current trends in the housing market so you can make the American dream your reality. Enjoy today's episode.
Well, it's a great day here in Colorado, and welcome to the Colorado Real Estate Leaders Podcast. And today we have with us Matt Dayton, and Matt is with Matt Dayton Real Estate. Welcome to the program, Matt.
Hey, Mike. Thanks for having me.
You are welcome. I'm looking forward to getting to know you because it's always neat just to hear backgrounds of how people get into the field that they're in. So what was it back in the day that got you into real estate?
Oh gosh, well, I'd like to say it was something that was monumental, but not to sugarcoat it. It was it really came down to providing for my family in a resort community, and I was actually at a wood flooring business at the time, and my family runs also a cross country ski area up here, and so it's kind of juggling back and forth from summer to winter. And a friend of mine actually had me doing a wood floor for one of his clients. His friend was a realtor, and it was just one of those jobs that was especially tough and beaten in the sun at 90 degrees in this place. And I huffed up, bundles and bundles of wood up the stairs because the elevator wasn't working. And anyway, he and I just started talking about real estate, and that was kind of what started that thought. So
neat.
Yeah. So anyway, the more I started thinking about it, and the more I just looked at kind of what some of my strengths are, and being able to really work well with folks, being able to be creative in solutions, bringing people together. That was some strengths of mine, and it just segued into the business.
And you know what? A big driver is family. Providing for family. Well, you could have gone and punched the clock doing a lot of different things, but this real estate is a very creative and flexible lifestyle, so that's really neat. Let's also establish what part of Colorado, when you say up in the mountains, what part do you work in and provide your services for? Yeah.
So I grew up in a poor white boy in Breckenridge, Colorado. So before you feel sorry, before you feel sorry for me on that, we didn't know we were poor back in the 70s here in Breckenridge. My dad came here to start an outdoor education school, and that was kind of where we got our start in Breckenridge. So really covering Breckenridge, Keystone, Frisco, Dillon, Silverthorne, and Copper Mountain. So a lot of the ski resort areas.
Yeah, awesome. And speaking of skiing, I know you've got a background in skiing, so tell us a little bit about your experience in skiing.
Sure. So, growing up here, definitely, kids are born with skis on, before they can learn to walk, they're on skis practically. Mm-hmm. So that was kind of my path. And, my dad just introduced me to the sport and the love for it, and cross-country ski racing was my main sport, and then I had a love for catching air on skis. So ski jumping was a sport that I got into a little bit later. I'm sure you're probably familiar with Eddie the Eagle, and that was kind of about where I started, was like Eddie the Eagle when I was 19 years old. So I started ski jumping, and that went really well. Moved to Steamboat Springs and started into their ski jumping program. And long story short, I had the opportunity to compete in Salt Lake Olympics in 2002.
Wow. And you said people typically in Breckenridge, tongue-in-cheek, born with skis on before they can walk, but it really is just part of that culture. And I think that when you start, skiing for recreation, and then you get into, maybe I'll go to that school and learn a little bit, and maybe I'll compete in this little, but there's a switch that gets flipped, I'm certain, So tell us a little bit about what was the time that you're like, maybe I could go Olympics and training, and that's a lot more than just weekend warrior. So talk a little bit about the training and then how that merged into some of the traits and, really personality drive to give you an edge now in what you're doing in real estate.
Yeah. So it started, I think there's a lot of kids that have that kind of dream or aspiration of going to the Olympics, and when they're a kid. It's, I think about 9 years old was the earliest memory I had of really wanting to do that. And the ski jumping part wasn't really in the vision then, but I just always kind of had that dream and that desire. And it's the opportunities have to be there, the drive has to be there, the skill set has to be there, and so there was the pieces continued to just fall in place for me. Obviously it came with a lot of hard work and a lot of drive, but it was so much fun, and I just loved it. And it, it's like God just really brought all those pieces together, and the opportunities and the timing. I mean, so many of these athletes you see, they go their whole life, they prepare for this, and then, they get injured, they get sick, their country goes to war. So it was just, I was so blessed and fortunate that it all came together, and to allow me to go.
And I think through that, yes, connections and the hard work, but I really think that when you think about success, it's that mental mindset preparation that is a big part of the training. I mean, ski jumping is not, sprinting, so you wouldn't think, long distance running, things like that physically, but I'm certain that you had to train physically as well because, your core strength and all of that flexibility. But talk a little bit about the mental approach that really, you had to prepare for, and really you're setting the goals and the dreams ahead of, what if Olympics, and what if I can make it? What if I can, win this competition and medal? And then you make it there. So it really, there's days that you have to get up at a certain time and really put in the work, but the mental approach and that keeping that dream ahead of you, out in front of you, drew you toward that, I'm certain, right?
Yeah, and you just, there's so many days that go well and so many things that go as planned, but there are so many that don't, and those are the ones that really define you. It's the injuries, it's the crashes, it's the setbacks that you have that you may not realize at the time that these are what are making you stronger and what are shaping you and preparing you for what lies ahead. But those were one of my biggest defining moments for my career, and kind of just as I went forward was I had a really bad crash when I was in Finland, or two crashes in the course of a week, and this was leading up to the Olympics, and we were preparing for the season, and this is how we're going to determine who's going to be on the Olympic team. And I got essentially grounded and sent home because of the two consecutive concussions I got. And it was during that time where I was able to reset mentally, focus on the things I needed to really focus on. And when I was able to come back, I came back with my best results on World Cup. And, I believe that if I hadn't had that experience and hadn't go through that, things would have looked very different. Yep.
Yeah, I think, there's so many life lessons that you can learn from sports and I just think it's really, I'm sure people have written books about, you persevere and you keep the dream in front of you, and, you crash one was devastating, crash two in the same week, and then getting sent home. And then I guess you could have given up, but yet you keep pushing, you keep your mindset focused where it needs to be. You said you grew up in Breckenridge. and that's different than a lot of people. A lot of people aren't born in a resort area. What do you find that attracts people to the mountain areas? And is it the mountains? Is it the skiing? Is it the fresh air? What are you finding with the people that you interact with?
Well, it used to be all about the mountains and the skiing, and we used to, the saying always goes for everybody that came here 20 years ago is that they came here for the winters and stayed for the summer, and here they are, and we're seeing a lot more and more folks that are just looking for a place to just escape, what is all the the hustle and the bustle of life and city life, or whether it's the heat. If you're coming from a place that's just miserably hot in the summertime, this is just an amazing place where you can go out and ride your bike at noon, or go for a hike, and it's comfortable.
Yes.
So I think so many people just really find that this climate is just really suitable for year round. You can always dress for cold, but there's only so many clothes you can take off without getting arrested, right?
I know. I've said that same thing for years. It's like, you could pile on layer after layer, but yet at the same time, if it's too hot and muggy and thick and bugs, and it's just miserable. And I know myself, I live in Arvada, and my family has a cabin and some land in Jefferson, so right over the hill from Breckenridge and just outside of Fairplay. And the summertime, it is just spectacular to go, wow, it's the middle of the day, and it's hot, it's 80s, 90, let's say, but it's not that thick mugginess. And to come over and drive around the passes and whatnot, and drop into Breckenridge, and to see the ski areas where now here's, take a gondola ride. And so there's so many things. It's not just anymore go up for the skiing and the snow. It's year round. So I've said this too, and maybe you can relate to this, and maybe clients of yours have said the same thing. You start driving up the hill, and it just feels like the stresses of the day or the life just melt away around halfway up, and it's like the air already the air in the Denver area is nice and thin anyway, but you start getting up to 9,000 to 10,000 feet, and you get into that open, and here's some nice mountains and lake area, and it's literally a physical feeling. I just really think that people, from the visual aspect of where they are anywhere, and then just the feeling of just the climate is just spectacular.
It is. It really is. I drove around a couple summers ago without my air conditioning working for a couple weeks before I went to Denver and realized that I didn't have AC. So, yeah.
It's like, I guess that's unique. So what about buying real estate? I know that, we could probably talk for 4.5 days on, the ins and outs of buying real estate, but there's a different nuance when you buy real estate in the mountains. What are some of the things you've noticed and learned over the years that buyers need to be aware of?
Yeah, no, absolutely. Well, for starters, we don't have air conditioning in our places. So that's one thing. Yeah, if people ask about that, I say, you open your window. It's just rare that we ever have days that you feel like you need that. So, but there's a lot of things that, everything from starting with HOAs and lending, and the guys at Trailstone Insurance Group can speak to the nuances with insurance. We don't have earthquakes, quakes, we don't have hurricanes, we don't have really floods, but we do have we do live in Colorado, and Colorado's got wildfires. Knowing, gosh, is this property going to be something that's going to be no problem to insure, or is this something we're going to have to be worried about based on its location, based on its roof? Just, little things like the driveway faces north, and I saw a place recently, you had about a 30-foot metal roof that sloped toward a north-facing driveway. Well, you get 8 inches of snow on top of that roof, guess where it all ends up? And if you're out shopping for homes in July or August, that's not even on your radar.
Right.
So those are some things. Radon is something that is a lot more prevalent up here. That's something that comes through the through the foundation of a home, easily fixed, but that's just
something to be aware of.
Something to be aware of. We are seeing a lot of stuff for short-term rental regulations. This is something that resort communities around the country and around the world are really facing. So there are a lot more short-term rental regulations that are coming in. So knowing where, if somebody wants to buy a place up here and have it, we want to use it a few times a year, but we're going to rent it the rest of the time to cover expenses or, even make money in some cases. You got to know where you're buying and what you're buying to make sure that it fits in your model.
Mm-hmm. Are most of your client, or what percentage of your clients are buying because they're just tired of city living and they're going to go live up in the mountains, or are they buying it for a second home for, I'm going to go out and ski in the wintertime or go in the summertime and also do some short-term rental? But is there a good mix between people that are just relocating up to the mountains as compared to buying for second home?
Gosh, no, that's a great question. And we've seen there's so much change here just with COVID that people have been able to work from home and they've been able to choose where they want to live. So we've seen a lot of people move up here and call this their primary residence. However, there's still just a lot of folks that want to just have the place here, second homes. I would say the majority of people that own these as second homes are doing rentals as well, just because it makes a lot of sense with VRBOs and Airbnbs. But we get a lot of folks from the Front Range. We're probably about 40% of our buyers are coming from the Front Range. Texas is a big buyer for this area. And California as well. So those are kind of the top ones.
Mm-hmm. So I loved your example about the roof and the driveway. And the typical person that would pull up to that particular property would look and go, hey, how beautiful is that? And let's look inside. And okay. But you would need an eagle eye, an expert like yourself to go, hey, here's something to consider. And nothing right or wrong with that. It's just something to expect. I'm sure that house is wonderful, but it's something to know, and that gives you some insight into that. So how about this? And this is like someone, again, like I mentioned, Fairplay's about 30, 40 minutes away from Breckenridge. So whenever we pull, or when we started going up to our place, the HOA over there in Indian Mountain would go, okay, now let's talk about wildlife. We have bears, we have mountain lions, and don't put your trash out on the deck. So when we go up, it's the cabin, so we just go up for, a few days here and there or a week. We have to take our garbage and we put it in the freezer to freeze it, and then we'll put it in a trash bag and then bring it back down with us when we go. And they even recommend don't even put out hummingbird feeders because that can attract bears. So talk a little bit about what people could expect if they're not from the area, they're coming from the Front Range and coming up to the mountains. What are some other things like that would be indicative of mountain living?
Yeah, no, that is interesting. Fortunately, we do have bears, but and you have to be conscious about what you do with your trash. But it doesn't sound like it's quite as much of a challenge as what you see there. Yeah. But we have, moose are obviously one of the things that are so much fun to see. They're just ginormous and majestic, and you run into one of these out in the wilderness, and you're just in awe about them. And I think a lot of people though will underestimate, when the joke is that when God said he was giving out brains, the moose thought he said chains and he didn't show up. So they're just they're super unpredictable. People don't know what they're going to do. They could run away from you. They could, be more aggressive. I would warn people that when they're hiking with their dogs, that's what typically gets people into trouble with the moose. So, they want to make sure that their dogs are on leash when they're in the wilderness, and that they don't get them into trouble. But when so many of these homes and properties, they back up to national forest. That's one of the wonderful things about where we live. We're just an island of private land surrounded by a sea and national forest. So you have this access of trails right out, virtually right out to your back door from anywhere you are. You can go and enjoy this. But with that, does come that aspect of kind of that interaction with nature and wilderness and respecting that.
Yeah, I mean, even in hiking, maybe there's an aspect to be aware of snakes or, the moose. Like you mentioned, that's not a deterrent. It actually should be an attraction. Just be aware of things like that, and like whenever you go up to, Estes Park and you see the elk, during bugling season, it's like, please don't get out of your car and go approach them. So when you see the wildlife, be careful. So I think, it's that lifestyle, it's the mountain air, it's just nature, it's just getting away from it all. And I think that a lot of people, you get caught up in your lifestyle, and we all bring it upon ourselves. Let's face it, we make ourselves as busy as we are, and we complain about it. But when you can take that time, and so let's say you come and just relocate your life to the mountains, that becomes a shifting in your outlook in what you're doing. And that could be a wonderful opportunity to, make new friends and inroads and even, business opportunities. Who knows that way? But even just the break, buying a property as a second home, just coming out and, I think that there's probably just a monstrous amount of health benefits of just getting out into nature. So I've just really enjoyed learning about what you do and how you do it. What are some of the things that you would direct people to when they come to your website? What are some of the things they can learn and maybe investigate and research for mountain properties on your website?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, obviously there's the links to be able to search what's on the market, search our inventory, and there's just ways to really boil it down and learn about what our market's doing. So I try to keep people up to date with video blogs, and my clients is just, it's about educating them. The more I can educate myself, the more I can research, the more that I can pass that along. I really try to focus my energies and efforts on the relationships that I have within the community, with other professionals in the community, and that benefits my clients tremendously to be able to pull on those relationships and those local experts, because there's just so much to learn about real estate here, and it takes more than just one person. You got to have those resources.
Yes.
But as far as the website, mattdaytonrealestate.com, and I'm always available on my phone for people to reach out to me. And that's 970-485-1167.
Excellent. Well, Matt, it's a real pleasure talking with you today. Loved learning about your history and your Olympic skiing career, and then now how you serve your clients in the mountain community. So thank you so much for coming on. We'll make sure that your website is hot linked in the show notes so someone listening to this can click and go right there. But of course, mattdaytonrealestate.com. Thank you so much for coming on. It was a real pleasure talking with you.
Hey, Mike, thanks so much. I really appreciate it as well.
Thank you for listening to the Colorado Real Estate Leaders Podcast, brought to you by Trailstone Insurance Group. To learn more about the topics mentioned on today's show or listen to past episodes, visit www.coloradorealestateleaders.com.